Participate in a conversation with once conservative, now liberal Midwest mastered prepared special education high school teacher and a self-proclaimed devil's advocate, East Coast conservative liberal, baccalaureate prepared registered nurse. These two strangers met, became instant friends, and realized their conversations are candid and epic. So join us weekly, ask us questions, and listen to these profoundly candid friends try to solve the world's problems, one discussion at a time.
Welcome to another exciting episode of The New Theory with Monet and Jared. I am, aka TNT with MJ. I am Jared.
I'm Monet.
And together we are teaching minds
and nurturing souls.
Well, it is so good to see you, my friend. How are you doing this week? Catch us up on anything new.
This week has been
that good, huh?
Oh my God. The dancing in the streets. All over the world.
Oh, yeah.
Paris ringing bells, fireworks in London. I mean, I really want to be cognizant of this celebration because it's not like I want to nanny in anyone's face because that's not our objective.
Yeah, no.
We we bear the weight of our considered adversaries because they have a voice. They have feelings. Some of us may have felt that way 4 years ago. I mean, I wasn't terribly upset when he won. I mean, I didn't vote for him, but I wasn't. So now that he's no longer going to be in the administration come January 20th, then we have work to do. I feel like, now I'm thinking like, okay, now what kind of poli-sci class can I take spring semester of 2021 so that I can become more of an advocate in this government process and see what we can do to help our fellow American, help ourselves. But oh my, and I don't think the dancing in the streets, I think it's more of a relief. Yeah. Just like there was when we discussed earlier about his economic platform and why so many people wanted him to stay in office because they felt economic strength with him in office. And they felt, obviously he's a representative for so many different classes in America. There was those of us that was just like, there's things going on as an administrator he's not doing very well with. And, we're afraid of, terrorist attacks, statistics. I mean, if you don't want to look at statistics because the term makes you feel, educationally disadvantaged, I guess. I don't know. So forget statistics.
That was a PC way of saying it.
Yeah, right. Let's in all honesty, domestic terrorism has gone on an all-time high with regards to hate crimes and people feeling victimized. And with him not say all he had to say, forget the coronavirus, because we can talk about that, Jared. We talked about that. Okay. The coronavirus, kind of put this nail in his coffin. He could have gone past that if he just would have condemned white supremacy. If he just would have condemned saying, you know what, we don't side with this. We want a government that looks at all the people as equal. He didn't even have to say Black Lives Matter.
No, he didn't.
All right, Joe Biden.
Right.
Saying. You don't have to go that far, but you could say we look at every single American as, and even in some ways he kind of alluded to it. The fact of the matter that not condemning those that want to cause harm for no reason based purely on race or a religious perspective or even towards women.
Right.
It just, for a lot of us was like, that's kind of scary because then, you're almost promoting a civil war of some sort.
Yeah, and to that point, I'm not going to lie, I was, for the first 24 to 48 hours, I was really worried about that, for his not condemning and ultimately giving license to that particular group to do what they wanted to do without, short of, you know, blatantly killing folks. Um, so yeah, it just kind of, it was like one domino after another. Um, the Michigan Supreme Court, or the Michigan Supreme Court ruling in favor of allowing open carry at polling places, and Michigan not being the only state to do that. And then and then you got these militia groups protesting. Not even Black Lives Matter protests did those folks come armed and
Yeah,
and
exactly.
wearing armor, or protection,
Capital P.
So that
That
really
speaks
raised
volumes.
a red flag to me. And so I to your point, I was really worried about not a civil war, if you will, but more of a race war. And so that, and yeah, I'm sorry. It just, and the emphasis on the Second Amendment, and you're not going to take our guns, that type of thing. Which group is primarily shouting that? You know what I'm saying?
It's not us.
It's not us. So that's where my concern was. And so this whole time I'm like, here's to hoping, but I'm glad I'm on the right side of the history.
Yeah, right.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm on the right side of history. So,
Jerry, I feel it's like after after they came out, and Joe, even though he still hasn't conceded or anything like that, and
mm-hmm,
everybody's calling it for Joe Biden
mm-hmm,
and Kamala Harris.
mm-hmm,
The reality is, I feel like people were on Facebook and social media
mm-hmm,
were coming out with, our gas is going to go up $4 to get. Where is this
mm-hmm.
coming?
Yeah,
Where is it coming
yeah,
from?
yeah.
And why do you think there's those of us that are like, yeah, we want that, and we want your guns taken, and we
Yeah.
want, okay, pump your brakes,
Right.
calm
Stay
down.
in your lane.
Yeah, right. First of all, let's start off with, let me start very basic with you. Santa Claus is not real. Okay. So there's no reason. I'm serious.
No, I get it.
Because
No, keep going.
you're gonna keep believing in fairy tales and
Mm-hmm,
fake nonsense.
mm-hmm,
And mind you, you become what you don't want to become if you keep spouting the
mm-hmm.
same shit. Fake news. Well, you're spouting fake news. Ain't nobody say nothing. You're perceiving. That means you're assuming. What happens when you assume? All right, fine.
Yeah, yeah.
So I didn't, when he won, I never thought any of this was going to happen. I never looked at him as a racist. I never thought, and I still almost don't even look at Trump as a racist. The problem is, and I'm being honest, Jared.
Okay.
Within his, well, maybe he is, but
oh no, he is.
The fact of the matter is, I mean, because I'm trying to be, I guess I am trying to be politically correct and still not internalize the fact that I feel like he's a racist. I think,
no, call a spade a spade.
Yeah, right. Okay, I have to call a spade because his leadership was a reflection of his moral compass. His moral compass was horrific. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Horrific. If you look at Italy and China, and those are, one is a diplomatic country, has democracy, and the other one is a communist country, and they both did the same thing. When they quarantine people, wasn't nobody on the street.
Yeah, England did the same thing.
Yeah, England did why? What was wrong with us? I told you I bought the chalk. I keep saying it because I was like, you know what? They're not going to let people out on. Cops are going to be patrolling the streets, telling people to go home, this, that, and the other. When none of that shit happened, I was like, this is a reflection of our administration. Said that day one. And I was like, and they were like, oh, look at all these blue states with all these people suffering from COVID. But we're fine. When my kids, I told you, my daughters came to Missouri and they saw people out in Walmart with no masks on. They were just mortified.
Yeah.
And now the Midwest is suffering terribly.
Yeah.
Not saying no one should suffer from this. No one.
Right.
But it's just like the audacity of just lack of humanity. And it's a reflection of that administration. It's like, well, I mean, the things that I heard, like, the kids in cages. They're like, well, they gave them, they're probably getting treated better than they were at home. Ooh, your assumptions are horrible. They're getting 3 meals. It's like, oh my God, I'd rather eat crackers and sit next to my mother than have quote unquote 3 meals that my mom didn't cook. Hello, wake up on that. I mean, no, let's talk some real shit. I'm
They
black.
say the same thing for prison.
Yeah. Like, oh,
3 hots
they
and a cot. Oh, they're getting well. Yeah. So, you're going to use that same rationale for children?
This is how fucked up our moral compass was. Our moral compass, like people were like justifying that. And I'm like, imagine you're a white child. I take you out of your white home. Okay. I'm giving you, now you're from Arkansas, so but I'm just saying, I give you grits, collard greens, a northern white kid. Okay. Grits, collard greens. I know you're like, and I'm lost.
I'm like, so far so good.
Yeah, right.
Where's the hang up? Other than the fact that you've taken me from my family.
Yeah, right. Other than that,
I got some good eats. What's the problem?
Normal, right?
You've traumatized me, but I get some good eats.
Yeah, right. What's wrong?
Yeah, what's the problem here?
So we're talking about kids, these indigenous to whatever country, and because we keep saying Mexico, but they could be El Salvadorian, whatever.
Yeah.
And now they're eating a cuisine that they're not accustomed to. So not only do you take away from their family, but you've also taken their culture away from them and their identity. I mean, things that they're accustomed to.
Yeah.
Giving them mylar, which is like a plastic reflective metal, like it's not a blanket.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I mean, like, and I heard people say, well, but at least they have something to keep them warm. Okay.
You're sleeping on concrete to start with.
Yeah. Yeah, they're sleeping on or like mats. Okay, and this is not us fabricating. These are things that we've seen.
Yeah. We've seen this. Yes.
Our moral compass has been askew. Countries are celebrating because they're like, yo, Americans aren't as jacked up morally as we thought they were. Because it's like that whole primitive mindset, somebody has to be above somebody else. Well, we can agree to disagree and still feel equally yoked. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we don't have to, doesn't have to be a superiority issue here. That's why 51% of Caucasian American women were like, 55, sorry. We're like, yeah, we need him because I'm going to lose my false sense of superiority. Your superiority already comes with the fact that you're a good person, period. Don't we know that? Don't we know that when you're inherently a good person, you get 1,000,000 gold stars within your own heart that you give to yourself?
Here's the problem with that mentality, though. You have to choose to act that way. You may be inherently a good person, but you still have the free will to choose one way or the other. So there's that.
So I feel like morality won. Look, you can talk about Joe all day. We can sit here and I can agree with you like 90% of the shit you say. And
yeah.
I don't think he's really like a child molester. I just like he's really affectionate. But that's my personal take.
And I've had that conversation with my students. Like, I've had one like the day before the election or the result. Yeah, I had the news on Tuesday. Yeah. By the way, I teach high school for those that don't remember. So it was kind of relevant to these guys, and they wanted to watch it. So on Tuesday. We watched the election, or no, I'm sorry, Wednesday, we watched the results because I was off with Tuesday offering rides to people who needed rides to the polls.
That's right.
So, sorry, I don't want to get off on a sidebar. Stay focused. So we watched the results on Wednesday, and one of my students said, I wouldn't vote for either one of them. I was like, why? It's like, they're both pedophiles. That's true for one. I
mean, like birds of a feather flock together,
I guess. And I was like, well, she's like, no. I was like, where'd you hear that? And she's like, well, that's what I was told. Or that's what I saw on my social media or whatever. I'm like, it's proven factual for one of them. Yeah, the other guy might be really handsy because he's kind of a granddad type guy. He's really affectionate. And yeah, I can understand that when he touches women's shoulders or whatever, or gets a little I don't want to say handsy, because he's not really being inappropriate, but an unwelcome touch is still an unwelcome touch. And so I can understand that, but yeah, you're walking up to some unsuspecting woman that you're familiar with, and she's familiar with you, but she doesn't expect you to come, and you just, I want to rub your shoulders a little bit. Yeah, not really okay. But
it used to be perceived as like, a term of,
Yeah, no, I remember as a kid having that done to me. It's like, here you go, it's, hey, I'm here, that type of thing, or yeah, rubbing the top of your head or pinching your cheek, whatever. But it doesn't begin to compare to pedophilia.
No, I mean the man. Trump said
or sexual
Epstein
assault
likes a little young.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're literally fraternizing, socializing with a man that has admitted, I like 12 and 14-year-old girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your moral compass didn't say, I got to segregate myself. The only thing that made him leave Epstein was a loss of money.
Mm-hmm.
He lost money in a deal. Like, what are you worshiping?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are you worshiping?
Yeah. Follow the money.
Like, had the deal gone through, you would still be fraternizing with this freak.
Yeah.
And it's well documented. Photos. My father said, believe nothing that you hear, half of what you see.
Yeah. No, I believe that.
Anyway.
Research everything else.
Yeah, and then research. And research has proven. But I mean, and it has nothing to do with level of education. A child can say, who's friends with who?
Mm-hmm.
If you're friends, what do you do with your friends? Do you share information? Do you play at the same playground?
Yeah.
He's already a well-established womanizer. Like, America, our moral fabric has been eroded. And we have to work on bringing it back. And not based on, well, my values are this and mine are better than yours. But no, there's certain things that are yes and no. There's no gray. Okay?
Oh yeah. And that's what I say about anytime somebody tells me that that's your truth. It's like, oh, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the concept of truth. Yeah. Yeah, I've said it before. I mean, there is either absolute truth or no truth. I mean, that you can't have it. You can't have your pot. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say that that's your truth. So in your head, you're right. And then, but this is my truth. So I'm right. Mm-hmm. And the world doesn't really work like that, buddy.
No.
And if you want to talk morality, go read the first 4 chapters of Mere Christianity, and let's talk about morality when you're done, and where that sense of morality came from. For those that don't know, Mere Christianity was a book written by C.S. Lewis, who is a 20th century apologist, also the author of the Chronicles of Narnia series. He's also written, he's written a lot of fantastic books. Screw Tape Letters, A Grief Observed, The Weight of Glory. It's just some really good stuff. But the first 4 chapters of Mere Christianity talks about morality, and that we're all born with this innate sense of morality, but it has to come from somewhere. And so where do you, and he uses logic to explain, like,
where do you get it from?
Exactly.
The surrounding.
But it still comes down to choice.
It does.
It still comes down to choice.
I love that my kid is homeschooled right now. He's doing the virtual.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't love it. It's a fucking nightmare. But
yeah, no, I feel you. And no, take that back. My wife feels you.
Yeah, right.
She's the one at home working from home. I'm in the classroom. So.
Well, let me tell you something. These little second graders. Okay.
Oh dear.
Oh my God.
Ours is a 9th grader. So yeah. Dude.
I've never heard a woman say, mute your mic, turn your mic off. We're quiet now. We're quiet now. If she doesn't say it 1,000 times, shout out to Miss Case. If she doesn't say it 1,000 times, she'll say, I mean, she's not saying it all. No, she says it 1,000 times. All right, we're being quiet now. Okay, we're being quiet now. But when she allows them the chance to be children, because they would be doing this if they were in a school setting, the conversations that they have with no adult interruption, with no one injecting themselves. I mean, it is refreshing, Jared. They want to take turns.
Oh, nice.
Be like, hey guys, hey, look, I have something to say. With no one guiding them, with no one. It's like watching the tools that you gave them as a parent, and then utilizing it in a collective way themselves. It's absolutely beautiful.
That's awesome.
It is like the pure essence of goodness. Like, and then some of them do over talk someone else and say, hey, the most beautiful, miraculous thing is like one or another kid will be like, hey, you didn't let him finish.
That's awesome. I love it when that happens. And
to me, it's like, I want to go back to that level of morality. Okay. We as adults have jaded it and kind of, like you said, your truth, my truth.
Right.
No, we learned in kindergarten, we learned how to get in line. We learned to take turns. We learned to hold the door for others. We learned to shut the lights off.
We learned order.
And regardless if you want to look at it as some kind of master corrupt system, the essence of the beginning of it was just basic humanitarian.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as the way I looked at it.
No, I agree.
Using it to corrupt the nation. And it was just principles of kindness, which allowed us to establish them. I mean, we would fight for each other. Like, that's not right. Be nice,
Yeah.
Whether we use shame by condemning them publicly, or we would say, you have to stand out. You don't get a turn because you were being unfair.
Right.
Those things, and what was unfair, you intentionally tried to hurt someone else's feelings.
Yeah.
It was acknowledged. So we never wanted to intentionally hurt someone else's feelings.
Right.
Our moral compass was, like the Hunan flu, like, shut the fuck. I wanted to slap the shit out of him.
Yeah.
I wanted to, and for people like, oh, that's funny. You are fucking assholes. There's an ethnic group of people that are minding their business, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Why would y'all say that? And you think it's funny. I mean, there's certain in a private. Is it right in a private setting? I don't know.
No,
maybe because
I would correct in a private setting. I will correct you. I'll just here's, and I'll look it up. I'll tell you. Here's why you're wrong.
And this is what I have to go up on, because look, I'm like, maybe I don't know. No, I'm being honest.
No, fair enough.
But when you're in an administrator, no, because then you're condoning it in a public setting.
Yeah.
And what 71% of 71 million Americans need to understand is just that simple act it transcends so much. You think you're making money now. What if investors pull out of America because they're like, oh, they're totally out of control, and they're letting a clown lead them? Okay, you may not think he's a clown, but his moral compass is so askew. You've had one wife. You have one wife. I have a husband for an extended period. It's over 20 years. For 20 years. You know what I'm saying? I have all my children. Like, our moral compass for us is high. Would I judge people that have 3 wives and 5 different kids, kids with different women? No, not really. I'm not judging you. Maybe I am a little bit. That's horrible. I can't say that, but not really. But then when you want to act like,
I'll judge that person when they start touting the value and sanctity of family.
Yeah, exactly. And then want to rip children away from. Look, if you want to get them out, put them all together. Just saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Why would you take the kids away from the parents?
Well, simple answer: deterrent. That's exactly why they wanted to do it. It's a deterrent for other people not to do that. That was the justification. You asked, I answered. Sorry.
You're right. It's very upsetting. Why, but how much trauma have you inflicted? How much
On the children alone,
on
much less the
children?
families. Let's take it a step further. I think I said this in our last week's episode or a previous episode of that they're taking children and housing them in hotels. The federal government is renting out entire, as far as I know, it's the federal government, because it's the federal government paying the private companies to do this. Renting out entire floors of hotels and housing the children in those rooms with nobody in there but the kids. And so out in the halls, you have the private companies being paid by the federal government to supervise these kids. Now, for those listening to this, that's not conspiracy theory. I've seen the reports. I've seen the evidence. I'm just going to leave it there. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's horrible. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, no, I don't want to talk about it either, but this
is what's going on.
Yeah.
And so this is like, this is, you guys want to talk, the other side wants to talk about, and I feel it. Okay. It was a lot of economic, the 401ks were blowing up, okay. But this is why the world and a lot of people feel the way they do.
Right.
All right.
Right.
I'm giving you hard, concrete things. And so now let's move on and let's try to unite, because that's what I've been spouting. I've been spouting peace.
No, I agree.
The few Trump supporting friends that I have on Facebook have been steering away from their horribly negative, like Blue Lives Matter and All Lives Matter posts. Now they're posting pictures of their families, or they're really trying to animals and stuff like that. They're trying to stay away from that political bullshit that they were trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that was all about division and, so like I said, I'd rather hear about the beautifulness that's going on in your life as opposed to how much you can't stand everybody else on this rock.
Right. Right.
And for white women that feel, I don't want white people to feel a sense of self-loss. There's nothing, you haven't lost anything.
No.
I mean, except for the idea that your race has superiority over anyone.
Right.
If you're a person that happens to be white and you're good and you're kind, you're already winning.
There you go.
Real shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that goes for everybody else. I mean, any Asian, Hispanic, whatever, if you're a good person, you're winning.
Yeah.
Because that's going to morph to. It's going to morph to a society where we reward each other. We don't shame each other. We want to support each other. We want to love each other. That's the society we want. That's the utopia. And even it's not going to be. We as adults realize that life ebbs and flows. There's things you think you think you got it, and all of a sudden you're like, where the hell did this come from?
Right.
Totally out of left field, right field, whatever. But then you have to deal with it, and that's your personal. And then usually, we pray. You know what I'm saying? As a community, we can collectively pray for healing and direction or whatever. But Jared,
no, I feel you. I feel you as much as I can. I'll put it that way, because I can't it's a little bit of a different experience, but yeah, no.
You think so? Yeah. No, I'm saying because
No, I'm laughing at your yawn, by the way.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
I'm telling you, I'm dealing with an emotional. This is very emotional week.
No, I feel you. That I do feel you. But
it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it is Friday the 13th. I've just been on this high all week, so.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is very exhilarating.
Well, it's not so much that. I mean, I got the, when I saw the news on Saturday, just be able to take that sigh of relief, like a weight had been lifted, I don't have to deal with that anymore. We can get past this. And then, the sun shined a little bit brighter on Sunday.
God, Friday, Saturday, the weather was unbelievable.
Yeah. But then, for those that don't know, I teach history in my special ed class, so we're doing world history. And the stuff that we've been on this week has just been, that's the high that I've been riding.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much, not so much the Biden win. And then
the kids' heads are like,
yeah, not just the kids. Not just the kids. Me and the assistant teacher. I mean, we just like we're trying to explain the magnitude of that. You know, he and I are both blown away. The kids are like they're kind of getting it, but then when we break it down to them, they're like, whoa,
wow.
You know, I didn't share this with you earlier, but one of the things that we learned together, mind you, and it just blew my mind. And this is the thing that I've been riding on all week. Excuse me. Excuse me. There is more genetic diversity between two chimps in Africa than there is in the entire human race.
Wow.
Right?
Glad you my brother.
Right? Right? And so my assistant teacher, he and I are like, how do we get the kids to fully understand this? This is just, that's phenomenal. And just every day it's been something new, and it just builds and it builds and it builds and it builds until you realize that, dude, the first, what was it? The first empires are being built when Jesus is born. That type of stuff. That's what so I'm like, wow. The first peoples to come into the present day Americas was about 15,000 years ago. And it was a single migration to boot. It wasn't one after the other. It was a single migration. So it was one group of people that inhabited the entire Americas.
Wow.
So you want to talk about relations, or relation between folks?
3,000, isn't that correct?
Yeah, it started out about 74,000 years ago. Huge volcanic eruption sent the world into a new ice age, wiped out pretty much all of humanity minus 3,000 people or so. Yeah.
And we literally are the offspring of those 3,000.
74,000 years ago, you have 7 to 8 billion people from those 3,000. So that's fun. There's more genetic diversity between the chimps and the human race.
When we've been saying we are like siblings, we have just been spouting our genetic makeup.
Truth. Yeah. Ultimately. And that's
but that means we're making it with our siblings too.
I would say extremely distant cousins. How about that?
It works.
like your 10th cousin 5 times removed. I don't know. So but yeah, I mean, if you were able to trace your line that far, it would arrive to one of those 3,000 people. It's just crazy to me.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
That's the stuff that we've been learning in class. And yeah, it's a special ed class. So,
And they're doing AP history
oh yeah.
because that's how awesome history, when it's being told correctly, is.
I would just say that that's how awesome history is in and of itself. But yeah, okay, thanks.
When it's being told correctly. Because
Yeah.
let me tell you something. I've been in some history classes where I'm like, I hate this place.
Well, it's because you're being taught from a textbook.
Yes. And it's like, wah, 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 wah. What's
Yeah.
our time, Jared?
Oh, we got about 5 more minutes. So
Ooh.
I think that leaves us just enough time to talk about the homework assignment that I gave you last week, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Antebellum.
yeah, for those that don't remember, I encouraged Monet to watch the movie Antebellum because it was quite the movie, to say the least. And the director is on record for saying that that movie was born out of a short story he and his partner wrote, based on a nightmare he was regularly having.
Can you imagine? So
No,
when I watched,
I don't want to
yeah,
imagine. I mean, I
well,
saw it.
so I mean, I was literally like, okay, so you were like, I'm not going to give you anything. I just want you to watch it. I just want you to know it has major twists.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, which I hate saying it now, but we're going to talk about it because guess what? If you haven't seen it, if you've seen it, then you can identify. If you haven't, well, we're going to give you a lot of information. I'm sorry. The fact of the matter is, so, but then if you're, usually inquisitive people are automatically will be like, well, let me take it. Let me
Yeah,
look
let me
at
see
it
it for myself. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, when I initially watched it, first of all, I was taken by the movie. I was impressed. I liked it. It
Hmm.
was a nice historical fiction. Yeah. So it's not real. All right, or at least we don't think it is. Needless to say. Um, and I liked it because it showed triumph again.
Hmm.
All right.
Mm.
Okay, and through the generations.
Hmm.
Now, with that being said, when I shared this information with a few close friends, just over the phone through text messages, they were like, "I didn't like that. I heard that movie was horrible. I'm not going to see it," or "I didn't like that movie because of whatever their reasonings were, based on the fact that it was a fictional movie." And I'm like, well, one, I like when a movie can transport me and make me think. All right. And what I really, really, really liked about it was the fact that, not that she just triumphed at the end,
Hmm.
but it did kind of get you lost. Like you're like, where are we? What's going on? Like,
Hmm.
and then what really makes you think is, are there people out there that really want this to happen again?
Right. Right. And that's where I was at the end of it. Not even at the end of it, but when the major twist happens. Um, well, I probably gave it a little bit too much on that one. At any rate, moving forward. Um, so my challenge was to put it into context of today. And so, especially given the fact that, well, now you had watched it. No, we both watched it after the
Election.
election. Yeah. In fact, I
Mhm.
watched it the day of the election. Um,
Oh,
as
creepy.
I'm sitting here waiting for, yeah, no, right. As I'm sitting here waiting for notifications of any kind of rides.
The new norm. You're right.
That's what I was worried about, to be honest with you. Thinking, could this be possible today?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, if 45 is elected for a second term, how much more likely is this to happen
Okay.
today? Uh, because there's enough white rich folks or rich white folks that might want to live that out.
Mm.
And it scares the hell out of me that there'd be enough people today. God, probably even more than enough people today to make that happen if they really, really wanted to. Simply because the man occupying the White House right now has, in my opinion, has given license to that type of behavior.
Without condemning
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Simply because he didn't condemn it. Oh, okay. So you're good with it. Oh, stand back, stand by. Got it.
Yo, that has left an impression on all of us. What the
So,
fuck? And just having it being left up to interpretation, it's like that you shouldn't want that. Because now my mind is just wandering with all the evil, nasty things that could
mm-hmm.
possibly.
Mm-hmm. What did he say? When the looting starts, the shooting starts, or something like that. That's
Yeah.
another nice that's another huge dog whistle right there.
It's like, why would you
So,
want to put that in people's heads? I mean, some people are fragile enough not to be responsible enough to just go out and be like, I'm gonna just shoot everybody. Just like that one family, everybody, like you, it was so divisive. What was it? Where was that at? In St. Louis?
mm-hmm.
And they went out with the lawyers, went out to their property with guns, like
Oh
with the
yeah,
pepper
that married
spray.
couple. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, what the fuck are y'all doing?
Yeah.
Well, and so the argument was, well, they prevented it from happening because they were out there with the guns. And it's like, they ain't want your property, honey.
Yeah.
They ain't want shit in your house. You think your house is the only house on the block? They didn't touch nobody else's house.
Right. No,
That's the
the
most
only thing.
narcissistic bullshit.
No, I agree. The only illegal thing, if you want to get it to that far, the only illegal thing that they did, assuming that the gate was closed, because it looked like the pictures were taken during the daytime, and I don't know too many gated communities that are closed during the day.
Yeah.
But
But they had false
I'm
assembly, right? Is
I'm
that what
sure.
it was?
Yeah, they
They had illegal assembly.
yeah, because they went into a gated community.
Hmm. But they didn't.
But
But
they weren't going into, yeah, they weren't destroying homes. They weren't getting onto people's properties that
they
I
were
know
just
of.
making a noise. They were being a
They
nuisance.
were just, yeah, being a nuisance. They wanted to be heard, wanted to make sure that this community, more
Heard
than
them.
likely by statistically predominantly white,
Why?
and they wanted to be heard.
Hmm.
You know, that may, for those listening, that might be overly simplistic view of it, but they weren't out there to cause harm. They weren't out there to cause
Well, I mean,
anybody danger or
in
anything like that.
hindsight, when you look at it, like all the looting and stuff that happened, maybe they thought they were coming to residential neighborhoods, but I just really think they should have been like just standing outside. I mean, they could have had it on their hip. Why have it? And you were literally pointing it at
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Like, so it's like I understand, their fear,
sure,
but at the same time, there's levels of responsibilities to what you're doing. And
right,
if you really want to do, tit for tat, well, you guys are wrong because you pointed a deadly weapon at people that
hmm
weren't even causing you harm
right,
at the time. You had perceived, see, let me go back. There's no such thing as Santa Claus. Stop believing in bullshit, okay? That
hmm
doesn't exist.
right,
It didn't happen yet. It wasn't even attempted to be happening. So they were just making noise walking down the street. And from what I heard, one person argue saying they were probably kids in the neighborhood. I mean, people that were from that neighborhood. That's how they got in. So I mean,
that,
it's so many different. It's so many and friends. They bought their
sure,
enlightened friends,
sure,
but whatever. So that's how they got in. But
that's logical.
it's like, yo, we need to stop assuming and fear mongering and worrying. And let me tell you something. We already talked about anxiety, and we're not living in anxiety anymore. And I can bring up 1,000 things that should scare the shit out of everybody all day
I'm sure you can.
that we will not discuss, that I will not bring up, because guess what? You can only live one motherfucking life.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for
Mm-hmm.
profanity, but you can only live one life. So with that being said, let's do it. Let's do it in the best way. And I'm not saying we walking around like morons, dilly dallying and daydreaming and bullshitting. I'm saying let's just be cognizant of kindness. Let's try to give it so we can get it back. Maybe that's the the trade-off. Okay. If I'm and not expect it. So when it comes, it's like a surprise, which is great. It's like, thank you. Do
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Because honestly, when that really does happen, when somebody's like, well, have a wonderful day. I'm like, oh, I didn't expect you to say that. Okay, you too. Thank you. It kind of tickles inside. I
Yeah.
don't know. It feels good. Is that
Sure.
word? Is that's tickle? That's not good, right?
No, I get
Oh.
what you're saying. I mean, yeah, no,
Maybe I could have used the
you don't have to be that analytical
It's like, ew,
or
no name,
that,
not a
critically
tickle.
thinking, but
Get
I get what you
out
know.
of
It's
there.
no, I'm with you. Let's. I would. For me personally, I would simplify it to say, let's just move on to the next step of evolution.
There you go. Ooh, we got to keep talking about that. So
Yeah.
people can start saying, oh, wait, am I thinking or
Yeah.
am I just existing?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, let's
That
move on to
being
that
said,
next step.
that's
So
right. So we have good vibes coming from you, Mr. Jared Middleton.
I try, but we don't have time to get into that.
Nope. All right, that's right. So we're done.
Yeah, we're about done. Yeah, it's about we're striving to keep this down below an hour, guys. So
Yeah. Sorry
we
about
know that we've been pushing the limits the past couple of times. So we appreciate your patience. But
All right.
with that being said, I think we've had a really, really great conversation. Um,
We need to solicit questions from a few of our listeners. So
yeah, I agree. I agree. So for those who are listening, hey, give us some questions. You can either comment on wherever it's posted or send us an email
or
at
yeah.
tntwmj@gmail.com. Again, that is tntwmj@gmail.com. So
Or
send us your questions.
join our conversation, Jared.
Absolutely.
They can
Absolutely.
zoom in with us.
If they're up for it, I'd love to have them. That'd be fun.
Do it.
There's a couple of people that I'd love to get on here. You mentioned your son before. That'd be a really fun conversation with a high school student.
With a 16-year-old, my
Oh
God.
yeah. Oh yeah. I'd
So
love to have that
prolific.
conversation with, teacher student. Oh man,
I would love to hear you too,
that'd be
because
fantastic.
he is so, and he's also at that like kind of like teenage angst emotional age,
Mm-hmm.
really passionate, and where I'm like, yeah, you are. Calm down, you be all
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Love it.
right.
Uh, love for and there's a couple of other people that I love and that it would be fun to have on with
All
us as
right.
well. But we can talk more about that later. So that being said, that's going to wrap it up for us this week, guys. Thank you for joining us. If you please join our conversation. If you want to send us questions or drop comments, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook. Again, hit us up on our email at tntwmj@gmail.com. This podcast, you can find us pretty much anywhere at this point, minus iTunes. I've not been able to get us on Apple yet, but we're on iHeartRadio, Google, Spotify, Spreaker. I think there's and we're also on YouTube. So you can pretty much find us anywhere, guys. So thank you again for listening and joining the conversation. I'm going to turn it over to Monet and leave us with a final word.
Everyone, please be kind, be good to one another. Don't forget, we're now learning that we're all relatives. So we got to treat each other like we like each other.
There you go. There you go. Treat each other like you would at Thanksgiving. There you go.
There you go.
All right. Well, with that, have a good
Love
one, guys.
you. Bye.